Look, first of all, if you followed the G20, it's not the first time that an important leader has been absent. President Trump didn't come, but he will have to preside over the next G20 in the United States. The absence of one leader means nothing for the G20. President Trump has been showing signs for a few months now. He has already withdrawn from UNESCO. He has already withdrawn from the World Trade Organization. He is trying to make a practical case, for the end of multilateralism, trying to strengthen unilateralism. I think multilateralism will prevail. We are a continent that does not have nuclear weapons. We do not have atomic bombs. We have nothing. What worries me a lot is the military apparatus that the United States has placed in the Caribbean Sea. It worries me a lot. Brazil has a responsibility in South America. Brazil shares a border with Venezuela, and that's no small thing. And I don't think it makes any sense to have a war now. In other words, let's not repeat the mistake that happened in the Russia-Ukraine war, a conflict that has brought about immense suffering, loss, and uncertainty for countless people.
Hi, President, over here. How are you, President? President, I'd like to ask about the G20. It's a forum that has already started to lose momentum this year with the absence of President Trump and Xi Jinping. Several leaders mentioned in their speeches yesterday the risk of the end of the G20. I'd like to know, in your opinion, what is the solution to keep the vitality, to keep the G20 alive, please? Thank you.
Look, first of all, if you followed the G20, it's not the first time that an important leader has been absent. On other occasions, we've held the G20 without key leaders who couldn't attend. President Xi Jinping didn't come, but his first vice minister did. In other words, the prime minister of China. So China is represented by a strong delegation. President Trump didn't come, but he will have to preside over the next G20 in the United States. And he will be present, and all of us will go there to preside over the G20. The absence of one leader means nothing for the G20. It means nothing because the G20 is made up of the 20 largest economies in the world, and I believe that today the G20 is the main forum for multilateral decisions and has the respect of the entire global economy. Everyone was there represented except for the United States. On other occasions, one country or another didn't come, and the G20 remains strong and will become even stronger. What is my concern with the G20? My concern is that we need to start making decisions so that something is actually put into practice by the next forum, because otherwise there will be a void and people will start to lose motivation. So what we need is to put into practice the things that we decide. And I think that became clear to everyone with the document that was officially signed.
President, do you think that the fact that the declaration was signed without the presence of the United States, is that a sign that could weaken future meetings of this kind? No, it's a sign.
It is important to note that the United States was not present. That is all there is to say. The only sign or indication is simply that. The United States, as already mentioned, was not present. Therefore, we do not know whether they agreed or disagreed. That is it. There is no other meaning. President Trump has been showing signs for a few months now. He has already withdrawn from UNESCO. He has already withdrawn from the World Trade Organization. He is trying to make a practical case, for the end of multilateralism, trying to strengthen unilateralism. I think multilateralism will prevail because everyone here knows that together we are much stronger, much more competent, and we find it easier to solve the problem of
world.
Mr. President, I would like to ask if the United States military deployment in the Caribbean was discussed at the D20 meeting, and also if you are concerned about a potential military conflict with Venezuela. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to know if all the military apparatus in the Caribbean.
The team is now preparing to face Venezuela in their upcoming match, a crucial encounter that will test their skills, determination, and teamwork as they strive to achieve a positive result against a formidable opponent.
the last part of your question specifically. You
are concerned then about this, that you might have a potential conflict?
I am concerned because South America is considered a zone of peace.
We are a continent that does not have nuclear weapons. We do not have atomic bombs. We have nothing. Our business is to work towards development and growth. What worries me a lot is the military apparatus that the United States has placed in the Caribbean Sea. It worries me a lot. And I intend to talk to President Trump about this because it is concerning me. Brazil has a responsibility in South America. Brazil shares a border with Venezuela, and that's no small thing. And I don't think it makes any sense to have a war now. In other words, let's not repeat the mistake that happened in the Russia-Ukraine war, a conflict that has brought about immense suffering, loss, and uncertainty for countless people. That is, to start, all it takes is a single shot, a single moment of aggression, a single decision that can set off a chain of events. But to end it, no one knows how it will finish, how long it will last, or what the ultimate consequences will be for everyone involved. So it's important that we try to find a solution before anything starts, before any irreversible actions are taken, before lives are lost and communities are torn apart. So I want to tell you that I am very worried, deeply concerned, and I would like for nothing to happen. Nothing at all. Nothing, because the cost of conflict is simply too high for everyone.
Upon being informed of the news and the particular circumstances involving the attempt to disable the electronic ankle monitor, and I would also like to know if you think this could cause any setbacks with President Trump recently.
Look, the very first important thing here is that I don't comment on a Supreme Court decision. The judiciary made a decision. He was tried. He had every right, the presumption of innocence. It was practically 2.5 years of investigation, plea bargains, and trial. In other words, the judiciary decided it's decided. He will serve the sentence determined by the court, and everyone knows what he did. So I have no further comment to make.
And President Trump, I would have reacted and dishonored a
sentence. I don't think it has anything to do with it. I think Trump needs to know that we are a sovereign country, that our justice system is, and what is decided here is final. Hello, Mr. President. This is Nelly Pato reporting for Reuters. Earlier, you mentioned that it does not really matter if Mr. Trump was. Mr. President, you said that you didn't care much about President Trump's absence and that it wouldn't have an impact on the event. However, could you elaborate on why you believe his absence is not significant? Furthermore, don't you think that the co-absence, meaning both you and President Trump not being present at the same time, could be interpreted differently by the public, your supporters, or even the international community? Some might see this as a sign of disunity or a missed opportunity for important dialogue between two leading figures. How do you respond to concerns that this simultaneous absence could affect perceptions of leadership or the outcome of the event? Of President Trump's presidency and about the leadership of the South African presidency and the fact that a final statement was reached without the presence of the United States, regardless of the United States, which did not want this to happen. Do you think this demonstrates that American influence in the world is declining? Look, you can't judge, the importance or not of a country's participation just because it missed a meeting. All presidents at one time or another have missed a meeting at some point during their tenure, and yet the meeting continues and goes on even without the presence of a president. Obviously, since the United States was not present at this particular meeting, it did not take part in the process of drafting the document, and it also did not participate in the vote on the document. But the 19 countries that were there, those that did attend, voted unanimously and in complete agreement to approve the document. That's it. In other words, the United States does not lose its significance by not attending. The United States remains the world's largest economy, the most important country. But it's just important to know that we persist, even when they don't take part in a meeting. That's all. I hope they manage to hold a great meeting in Miami.